Hello again. I'm just going to do a video today. It's a presentation again. Now this is about Flight 175 and it's an independent analysis of evidence. I shall mainly be using official evidence, telemetry data and also some mainstream media news sources from on the day and perhaps afterwards. So I will give a brief conclusion as to what I think was going on with this flight. Since I have written this blog post, evidence has changed a little bit. Perhaps my position may change, but this is where I'm sort of at the moment. So let's crack on and let's deal with the evidence. So Flight 175. Okay, now this flight was to depart at 8 AM for Los Angeles from Boston Logan from Terminal C's Gate 19. Now the pushback for the plane was at 7:58 and it took off. There was a delay, it took off at 8:14 from runway 9. So I just needed to fill you in on that because there's some other evidence coming along which is perhaps going to really contradict some of this evidence. So the first point is, in the official evidence, there's some discrepancies in the official wheels off time. So again, I'm referring back to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics database, and it revealed a discrepancy of the wheels off time. Now the official wheels off time is 8:14 AM, yet in the database it reveals that United 175 took off at 8:23. Now it also gives a tail number in the database which was N61 to UA. Now this evidence to do the BTS is contradicted apparently in the air traffic control communications, indicating that United Airlines 175 took off at 8:14. Now again, this is a little bit of an update which I've not put into this presentation, but again, the transcripts of the recordings from the ground stations when the plane allegedly took off, it's a bit difficult to marry up the timeline, and there's no definitive evidence on those tapes saying that the time began at 8:14. It could have been 8:23 AM. So, but you can listen back. It does mention you can hear Flight 175 taking off, allegedly. So, but they could have shifted the timeline in those tapes, perhaps, I don't know. But what we have at the moment is the air traffic control showing that a plane took off, although there's no definitive time to prove it was 8:14 in those recordings. So just moving on. Now some of this will come into play again a bit later on. Now I'm just going to go through. So the ACARS data showed that Flight 175 I think took off at 8:23. Now the ACARS data sent to the BTS, there's no intervention, there's no human failures, it's sent on an ongoing basis. So but in the ACARS data it shows the wheels off of 8:23. So just moving on. Now we got an interesting witness which comes from Lynn Spencer's book on Touching History. Now this witness was Steve Miller, who was a first officer on US Airways 685, which departed directly after Flight 175. Now he was interviewed by Lynn Spencer for her book Touching History, and Miller stated and meticulously described how he was waiting for departure of Flight 175 before he could take off. So this is a direct quote from Lynn Spencer's book here of Stephen Miller. So I'm just going to read it out. So he says, on the taxi out in Boston, they, in brackets, the pilots of US Airways 6805, bracket finished, waited at the runway's hold short line, where Miller looked up to watch a United Boeing 767 take off from Flight 175. The final weight and balance calculations from dispatch came over the ACARS at 8:05, and with that in hand, the crew was ready to fly. Wide-body aircraft produce especially powerful wingtip vortices, horizontal tornado-like winds off the ends of the wings, which require time to dissipate before another aircraft can take off. So he waited the required 3 minutes after United 175 departed before he received his takeoff clearance. So what we're looking at here is, folks, is Steve Miller's behind Flight 175 and he's waiting because Flight 175's taken off. Now he has to wait 3 minutes, which is a mandatory thing because of the wake vortex that's created by a plane. It can cause, quite a heavy turbulence if you're caught up in that after the plane's taken off. So we've got to consider that if Flight 175 took off at 8:14 and another 175 took off at 8:23, we have to bear in mind the US Airways 6805 First Officer's Miller's account, who was behind Flight 175 when it took off. So, interestingly, in the BTS, they do give a tail number, which is apparently Flight 175, which took off at 8:23. So, if you cross-reference flight, the USA 6805 wheels off time of 8:28, and Miller had to wait till 3 minutes after that, let's say approximately, it would marry up better with the 8:23, 8:24 of Flight 175 taking off. Now, which makes it inconceivable that Miller observed an aeroplane that took off at 8:14. So that's sort of like an eyewitness, and you can sort of judge the timeline there a little bit. So as I point out here, is the question is, did Miller see a different United Airlines plane? Well, when I went into the BTS database and you look at the flight, what Miller was flying that day, it appears unlikely. And, a very slim possibility it could have been a domestic United that took off, because the BTS database only lists domestic flights. However, Miller himself states that 175, and he overheard that flight number when taxiing out. And I think for somebody like Miller, who was frequent flyer from Boston, Logan, he was familiar with a wide body plane departing. So I think we could, hold a lot of weight in his account there. So it seems that Miller, if he took off at 8:28, well, 3 minutes back is 8:25. Given, approximately, I think it fits better with the 8:23 than 8:14 time, the official 8:14 time. So, again, like with other flights I've done presentations on, we're having duplicate information on the flight identity. And again, this is official information, by the way. So, again, the FAA's report stated that UA175 at 19,000 feet at 8:23 a.m. Now, this would be, again, it's a bit of a contradiction here, and it was virtually identified by AA11's pilot at 8:35 a.m. So, this is, and in the commission report it states itself that United 175 pushed back from its gate at 7:58 and departed Boston Logan Airport at 8:14, and by 8:33 it had reached its assigned cruising altitude of 31,000 feet. So the document states that UA175 departed at 8:14. So this is referenced in the FAA. So they're really going with that time. So again, we've got, this is impossible, really, that from 8:23, 175 was instructed to climb at 31,000 feet, and then by 8:40, again, the 175 radio day was at 31,000 feet. So a lot of contradictions going on in the official evidence. So I'll just move down a little bit here. I want to get more into some of these areas, so I'm not going to do all the presentation because it does take a long time. So the emergency locator transmitter. So this is like a beacon that sounds when a plane crashes, and it gives off on a frequency transmitted a signal, so the plane can be found. So the strange thing here is that the ELT went off minutes before the actual crash into the South Tower, and no ELT went off at the time of the crash at 9:03. So evidence confirms an ELT going off at 8:58. Now, just think about that, folks. 8:58 and 9:03 is nearly 5 minutes, in that discrepancy. And the 9/11 Commission's own expert witness even says that in Boeing 757s and Boeing 767s, you cannot manually activate the ELT. So that's highly unlikely that happened. Somebody activated it too early, but it never went off at the time of the crash either. So this is again very strange. So moving on, that's another piece of official evidence, by the way, showing that plane did not crash at that time. And all the times on the television show you that was the time apparently a plane crashed into that building. So, but that's not what we're seeing. So we do have some radar evidence. I'm not going to go too deep into this. You can read all this on my blog. I do quite a detailed study of this. I was just talking about the transponder. Now that changed some codes just quickly. Changed a couple of codes along the way, which was very suspicious. So just moving on to the next. So this is the radar evidence. Now we have Flight 175 here, and we have United Airlines 1523 here. Now Flight 175 is coming in, and it almost merges with United Airlines 1523. We also have Flight 93 there. Now, was this some type of merging? Because, as I'm going to explain now, Flight 175 allegedly, in the official story, turns round and heads back to New York to crash into the World Trade Center. However, both 175 and 1523 have come together, merged in the radar there, and it could be that the flight 1523 is the flight that went that way rather than 175. And the reason I say this is is because of the ACARS data, which indicated 175 was over Harrisburg at the time at 8:59 and not heading towards the World Trade Center and crashing at 9:03. So 175 seems to have carried on that way rather than turning that way. Now, we've got to bear in mind it did merge with this UAL flight 1523, United Airlines. So is there something in that? Possibly. Now, the ACARS is showing it the direction of the flight going in a different direction because it's picked up on the ground stations that it's communicating with in Harrisburg, which is nowhere near where Flight 175 should be at 8:59. Now, I know some people have suggested there's a quite a large radius that would pick up on the ground stations to do with the ACARS, but they're roughly, to my best knowledge back in 2001, they're roughly like a 200-mile radius, and that can also be affected by altitudes. So I just wanted to mention that because I don't mention that in this blog post I made. So it apparently deviates off course and flies back to New York. Now, I do not buy that. Again, this is the ACARS data here. So it's just showing Flight 175's path there, heading back. And now this is at 8:59. Now, this is detailed. 8:59. And this is all done by the coordinates as well. So it's here. And it crashes there. Now, the ACARS station that received Flight 175's the up and down links was in Harrisburg. So again, that is nowhere near that, and it should have been picked up more in the vicinity of around here, not over here. So again, this is the damning evidence. This is official evidence. Just moving on. So again, we have another ACARS message which was sent to United 175, located from Pittsburgh ACARS ground station at 9:23. Now, again, it's crashed here, but the message is still being sent here and being received at 9:03. So this is impossible, folks. Something else is at play. Let's just move on, just so I can give you an understanding. So here's the ground station there, and it's in Pittsburgh, and it's sent to N61UA GL Pitt. So that's ground location Pittsburgh. So this is not. This is impossible. If Flight 173 is about to crash into the towers, or crashed into the towers, I should say, it shouldn't be picking up messages and communicating with the ground station in Pittsburgh. Now, there's experts in the commission reports or investigation reports, where we have Ed Ballinger. He states in his testimony that he sent an uplink ACARS message to United Airlines 175 at 9:23, routed through the ACARS ground station in Pittsburgh 20 minutes after the alleged crash. So again, it's in the documentation. Now he's on record. Also, Ballinger sent a subsequent ACARS uplink message to United 175 at 9:51 a.m, which is 48 minutes past the crash site. I mean, if that plane had allegedly crashed, why is he sending messages up to that plane? So, again, you can read that. I've cited all the links for that. And here's the log, which I've screenshot and out the document, which I read. Moving on. To me, the ACARS data is pretty damning. in all the flights actually. So here we have it, 9:51. Advised UAL to land as soon as possible anywhere. So he didn't think they had crashed either. So just moving past the ACARS data now. Now another piece of damning evidence. Now this is official mainstream media showing the official Flight Explorer software on the screen. Now inadvertently they hover over the planes which are on the screen, and when they hover over one particular plane it comes up as Flight 175, and this is at 10:25 a.m. and it's located over Connecticut. Now just to add that the Flight Explorer is a real-time software program. Now the Flight Explorer tracker, during the live broadcast on MSNBC, it's coming from radar, FAA radar systems, so in real time. So again, there's no delay on this, and Flight 175 should not be over Connecticut at 10:25 if it had crashed. So they've got a real problem. Now here's the screenshot. Now some people have said, oh, that's not 175 there in the top line. To me, I've done analysis on that, and you can see it's Flight 175, which I'll show you in a second. But the most damning evidence to prove it's 175 is it's got Boston 8:15 a.m, which is when it took off, and LAX its arrival time, estimated arrival time 1:44, which is Flight 175's information for its departure and arrival. So again, here's what I sort of enlarged, quite pixelated, but you can see clearly there 175 and the other writing. Now looks a bit more convincing when you what they call invert the colour. So you can see clearly there 175, and it's got all its matching other information for 175 there. Again, damning evidence, folks, because it's showing either that is a simulated blip on the screen at 10:25, which I suggest may be part of the exercises that were going on 9/11, because they will have you believe, the media, that it was a normal, regular day in aviation. Now, it was not. There was a number of simulated exercises going on that involved hijackings of aeroplanes on 9/11 with the similar or same scenario, and we know there was definitely one live fly one as well. What also correlates with the 10:25 of United Airlines still being airborne after the crash is the ABC News broadcast at 11:32, which claims that 175 was still unaccounted for. Now, that's quite a long time after it crashed, and I suggest here that if it was a real aeroplane that's picked up on the MSNBC news report, that this is why at 10:30 it was picked up 10:25 in the morning. So if it was still in the air at that time, United Airlines could not account for that plane if it had crashed, because if they did account for it and it was still airborne and over Connecticut, that would pose a real problem for the official narrative. So I believe that's why they said they couldn't account for that plane. So here we go. Now I've added this, I've put it on a map from the MSNBC screenshot, and the plane's here, which is heading over Connecticut. And it seems, according to this, and I've put this line in, when you strike the line through, it shows that it's in line with Boston Logan Airport. So does this suggest that Flight 175 was still airborne and flying back to Boston? Because when they done the ground stop, they told them to trying to down the airplanes to go to the airport. Though the thing which I'll show in a moment is they were told not to go to DCA Airport or steer clear of Washington. So is this why that this flight was heading back to Boston? So I'll just show you an enlarged version there, and I've struck the line through and it lines up with Boston Logan Airport. Again, you can see flight 175 there clearly. You know, there's no debate about that. Now, Boston Airport was roughly 161 miles away, so it's likely it was going towards Boston to land at Boston. Now, I did check to see whether there was any military bases along that corridor route that it was flying. There is a number of them. However, as noted in the altitude, Flight 175 its altitude was far too high, I think, to be landing at any of the military bases along that corridor. Again, I've wrote about this in some detail here. So I'll just continue. So I did do like a little conclusion of evidence and data. So just to conclude, it looks like that United 175 took off from Boston International Airport at either 8:14 or 8:23 a.m. The Bureau of Transportation database statistics reveal a discrepancy regarding the wheels off time. The BTS log shows wheels off time at 8:23, also with a tail number, so which is very telling, and the correct tail number for the flight of the name flight. However, the official narrative wheels off time is 8:14. So again, we've got two planes perhaps, or two pieces of evidence identifying as Flight 175. We also have the contradiction in the air traffic control, although now I feel there's no evidence to show a timeline in the air traffic control, so that causes me to doubt that, because timelines can be shifted when you don't give a time on the actual recordings, and there's no time mentioned. So for all I know, that plane was taken off at 8:23 and not 8:14. So we also have the radar evidence where UAL 1523 deviates from its flight path, merges with Flight 175. We also have Flight 175's ACARS data showing that it was picking up messages from Harrisburg, which is highly damning evidence for the official narrative. We also have the emergency locator transmitter going off 4.5 minutes too early. Again, damning evidence, because their own witness, expert witness, says you cannot activate manually an ELT in a Boeing 757 or 757. So, 767 and 757. So, again, damning evidence there. Also, we have what I've just spoken about. Flight 175 picked up on Flight Explorer flying over Connecticut, and it seems 160 miles from Boston Logan Airport. So, as I said, the ACARS back there, it was picked up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and obviously picked up again over in the Connecticut location of Flight Explorer. So I was just recapping there. Now, this is a proposed route which I've put forward a few years ago, which I think 175 took. I think perhaps it was with the ACARS telling them to land at the nearest airport. Perhaps they were going to land in Washington, and I think they was not allowed to land there and were sent on, which is why they ended up here. Now, I may change or deviate from this hypothesis for that particular part of the flight, because the flight had to be over here at some point because it was in this vicinity, because it was connecting to the ACARS ground station here location in the data and here. So it gives you a little bit of a flight path area that it would have been around, not up here, as the official story have us believe. So moving on swiftly, that concludes part of the evidence there for my presentation on that. Now that's official evidence, and there's some mainstream media sources which they're the ones who they like to call themselves the truth, and they don't put out misinformation. So let's test them on that. You can read in detail what I've gone through in this presentation, which I've sort of skipped through to some degree. You can read it here, which was posted on Saturday the 15th of February 2020. This is my independent analysis that I've done in quite some detail. It's all sourced and referenced. If you can, please have a look at that and take a look and read through it. I do, pardon me, explain how the emergency locator transmitters work there. There's a lot of information I haven't included, which I've included in the full write-up. So please give that a read. There's some video there, some visual maps here showing what I was explaining. I explain about the ACARS and the messages, show it there as well. So this gives you a full analysis in a lot more detail than I've gone through in the presentation. So I wanted to keep it as short as possible, but there is a lot of information to go through here, and perhaps I may have missed a couple out. So I will correct this video, and so people can actually see that news footage of MSNBC for themselves. All the screenshots are in. Got this one here, Peter Jennings, which I mentioned, United Flight 175 being unaccounted for. So I'm going to leave it there. Do check out this article, its blog post. I have included some new links down the side here. I've corrected them because some of them was not working. I recommend Shoestring's blog website and his YouTube channel. Check out Woody Box, although on this blog, go to the earlier blogs at the beginning, because he sort of came away from a lot of the planes 9/11 blogs later on that blog. Check the 9/11 ACARS blog website. There's pilots for 9/11 Truth. There's 9/11 Maps YouTube channel 1 and 2, and 9/11 Myths Commission Investigation Resources. Now that is a fantastic repository of documents. It's a lot more than I've accumulated, and they're very well set out as well, and you can download them there. And again, the reason I'm posting that is to empower people to go and read the official evidence for themselves and draw their own conclusions on that. Don't listen to me or take my word for it. Check that evidence for yourself and check the inconsistencies, because they do exist. There's also the 9/11 Alchemy film Big Idea and 9/11 Alchemy film Face Reality that I was involved with here. You can watch, that's 3 hours, that one. That talks about the planes, the technology as well in relation to the planes. We've got Jeff Hill's phone calls with the videographers, and also Richard Deal's 3D Flight 175 analysis. So I'll leave it there, and I'll catch up again soon. Have a good day all, and bye for now.